Okay, so welcome to another deep dive.
Yeah,
As always, we're taking some really cool stuff that you guys are interested in and digging in.
absolutely.
Today is, well, it's a little different.
A little bit, yeah.
We're not looking at a study. We're not looking at headlines or anything like that.
Nope.
This time we are looking at a short story
That's right.
called Litmus Tosses
By Arnav Banerjee.
by Arnav Banerjee. That's right.
Yes,
And it's fiction, right?
it is.
So this is a fictional story, but I think what we're going to find is that there are some really interesting ideas about how we see ourselves
Oh, for sure, yeah.
and maybe even how we define, like, good and evil.
Yeah, you could think of it as a thought experiment
Yeah,
wrapped up in a narrative.
right.
And the story takes place a year after a nuclear war.
Okay,
And it centers on this really bright 15-year-old kid
okay.
named Yoku.
Yoku, okay.
Yeah, and he's grappling with this question that his history teacher posed to the class,
Okay.
which is there a litmus test for good and evil?
That's a big question.
It's a deceptively simple question
Yeah.
that leads to so many different avenues of thought.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I mean, you think about, like, okay, in science class, right?
right.
Litmus paper.
Exactly, yeah.
It's like, is it acidic? Is it basic?
Is it yes or no?
Yeah. But then you think about, like, well, morality is way more complicated than
In
that.
fact, way more gray areas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can see how he's kind of stuck on that.
Absolutely.
What's interesting, though, is that he remembers his math teacher explaining probability using coin tosses.
Right.
And so he's like, oh,
The light bulb goes off?
yeah, the more you toss the coin, the more you can kind of tell if it's weighted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You could figure out if there's a bias.
Yeah. And so he's like, what if a test for good and evil isn't just like a one-time thing? What if it's something that you have to do over and over and over again to really kind of,
To determine a pattern.
yeah, to see a pattern?
Yeah.
And so, like, he's imagining like 200 of these tests. And, you know, like, is that enough? Is that a good?
And that's where the question comes up.
Yeah.
Is morality static?
Yeah.
Is it something that's fixed or is it fluid?
Yeah.
Can it shift based on circumstance,
Yeah.
based on the situation, based on what's going on in your life at that time?
Yeah. Could you get like 200 evil results and that means you're evil, or?
Right. Or is that just saying, well,
Yeah.
in this situation, this particular situation, this is how you tend to lean?
Yeah. This is how I react.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
So he's struggling with this, and he's trying to figure out, like, what would this test even be?
Right. What would it look like?
Yeah.
How would you test something like that?
Yeah. What would it look like? And then on top of that, we find out that his dad.
Yes, his dad,
is
a scientist who works in a secret underground lab.
very hush hush.
Very hush-hush.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what he's doing down there.
Yeah.
Not even Yoko.
It seems like something's going on.
Yeah. There's definitely more of this world than just Yoku and his thoughts about good and evil.
Right.
Yeah.
Like there's some bigger thing that's kind of being hinted at.
Yeah, definitely.
And then as if like this wasn't enough,
Right.
it's like having this existential crisis.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, boom, a glowing blue circle appears in his room.
Oh, wow.
I know.
That's a little unsettling.
And out of this circle steps a person
Okay.
in a full white hazmat suit
Right.
with a red cylinder. And we find out later this is an oxygen tank.
Okay.
But here's the thing.
What's that?
This person in the hazmat suit
Uh-huh.
takes off the helmet.
Yeah.
And it's Yoku.
No way.
It's older Yoku.
Oh,
10 days older, to be exact.
That's crazy.
I know.
It really makes you wonder about the purpose of this visit.
Yeah.
Is this a warning?
Yeah.
Is it a test?
Yeah.
Is it something else entirely?
Yeah. And he delivers some pretty bad news.
That does.
He says the world is going to end in 12 days because of a gas leak that's going to wipe out all the oxygen.
Oh, wow.
A classic doomsday scenario.
Right.
And he's brought this oxygen tank
Okay.
as the only way for his family to survive.
This is their only hope.
But there's a catch.
What's that?
There's only a limited amount of oxygen.
Oh, that makes sense.
And so the fewer people that are using it, the longer it will last.
Right.
And older Yoku says it very clearly. The less the people, the more the oxygen for one person.
Oh, wow.
And then he vanishes.
He just disappears?
Just as quickly as he appeared.
Oh, wow. So now Yoku is left with this impossible decision.
Yeah.
Who to save?
It's heavy stuff.
It's really heavy stuff.
Yeah.
Especially at that age.
Especially at 15 years old.
Yeah, to have the weight of the world on your shoulders like that.
Right. He has to figure out, like, okay, who is the most important to me?
And who deserves to survive.
Yeah.
It's tough.
And so for the next 5 days, he is completely consumed
Wow, 5 days straight.
by this.
Just thinking about this.
Just agonizing over this.
Yeah.
And he's going through and he's thinking about each family member individually.
Oh, wow.
Like his grandfather, he's getting up there in years.
Yeah.
His dad, who's always working.
Oh.
His baby sister, who's sick.
Oh, no.
His older sister, who has weak lungs.
Okay.
And his stepmom, who he doesn't have the greatest relationship with.
It's like a horrible version of Sophie's Choice.
I know. And so he comes to a decision.
Okay, and what's the decision?
He decides to save himself.
Wow, so he chooses self-preservation?
Yeah.
That's pretty stark.
Yeah.
Were you surprised by that, or did it seem like the most logical option given the limited resources?
You know, I don't know if it's logical, but it definitely makes you think, like, if you were in that situation, what would you do?
Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
easy to judge from the outside,
Yeah.
but when you're in that pressure cooker situation,
Yeah.
who knows how you'd react?
Yeah. And that seems to be kind of the point.
Right.
But doesn't stop there.
Okay. Tell me more.
So on the 9th day, Yoku remembers something.
He remembers what?
He remembers his dad's time machine.
Oh, wow. So that's what his dad was working on in the lab,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
the secret project.
Yeah. And so he sneaks into the lab.
And does he find it?
Oh, he finds it?
He finds the time machine.
Huge cylindrical machine.
Wow.
And underneath it, he finds a yellow piece of paper with a message on it.
A message.
Yeah, and it says, "It seems you have found your litmus test. Now check the register in the drawer. P.S. Keep this paper where it was."
Okay, hold on a second.
Yeah.
This message is clearly from his future self, right?
Yeah.
I mean, who else would leave it there?
Right.
So he's already been down there, and he's leaving clues for his past self.
Yeah, and so Yoku goes to the drawer,
Yeah.
and there's this register there.
What kind of register?
It's labeled Outcome Book,
Outcome book. Okay.
and it has 200 rows and 8 columns.
8 columns. Okay.
And each column is labeled with a family member's name,
Including Yoku's.
including Yoku's.
Yes.
And there are all these ticks
Where are the ticks?
under Yoku's name.
Every single one.
Every single one.
Wow.
98 of them.
Okay, so 98 times he's run through this scenario.
Yeah, and he takes a pen,
Yeah.
and he puts a 99th tick under his name.
So he's adding to the tally.
Yeah, and then it hits him.
It hits him what?
He says, now, I get it.
What does he get?
The world wasn't actually ending. It
What?
was all a test.
Oh, wow.
A test of his character.
So the doomsday scenario wasn't real.
Yeah,
It was all just a way to see how he would react.
exactly. And those ticks in the register,
Yeah.
those are all the times he's taken the test.
And every time he chose to save himself.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so there's another yellow note.
Okay, another one.
Yeah, this one just says to check the cupboard.
And what's in the cupboard?
The white hazmat suit.
The one that future Yoku was wearing.
Yeah, and there's another note attached to it.
What does this one say?
Just, you know what to do next.
Okay, so now it's all starting to come together.
Right.
So he gets the oxygen cylinder, goes back to the lab,
Yeah, and he finds instructions on how to use the time machine.
and he wrote them.
He wrote them.
Wow, this is incredible.
Yeah.
So he sets the date for 9 days in the past
Uh-huh.
and steps into the glowing blue circle.
With the oxygen cylinder?
This is an amazing turn of events.
Yeah, I know.
The apocalypse, the impossible choice. It was all a test
All orchestrated by Yoku himself.
from the future,
Yeah.
like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It really makes you think about that question the history teacher asked.
Is there a litmus test for good and evil?
Right.
And it seems like this story is saying, yeah, there is,
Yeah.
but it's not what you think.
Right, it's not like a one-time thing.
No, it's not a simple yes or no.
Yeah.
It's about putting yourself in these impossible situations over and over again.
And seeing what you would do.
Exactly, to reveal your true nature.
Yeah, and that's kind of unsettling.
It is.
Because it makes you wonder, like, did Yoku fail the test?
He chose to save himself every time.
Right, but then why would his future self go to all this trouble to set up the test?
Right, maybe it's about recognizing your flaws
Yeah, maybe.
and trying to overcome them.
Yeah, like maybe he's trying to change something.
It's really thought-provoking.
Yeah, it makes you think about, like, okay, well, what would I do in that situation?
Absolutely. And it also raises questions about the ethics of it all.
Yeah. I mean, is it okay to put yourself through that?
Yeah, and what about the potential psychological impact on his family?
Right.
I mean, they were never in any real danger,
Yeah.
but Yoku believed they were.
Yeah, he had to make these impossible choices.
It's a lot to grapple with.
It is.
This story really gets under your skin,
It really does.
and it stays with you long after you've finished reading it.
Yeah, it makes you question everything.
And that's the power of a good story.
Absolutely.
It makes you think,
Yeah.
it challenges your assumptions.
And it leaves you with more questions than answers.
Exactly.
Well, that's it for this deep dive into Arnav Banerjee's Litmus Tosses.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for listening.
We'll see you next time.
Until our next dive, keep those curious minds working.
Absolutely.
See ya.